Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set.
Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
Finally, Clemson Sports Talk has come back to Drive Time. Hello, everybody. Lawton Swan back in the saddle once again. It is the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk for you each and every afternoon as you make your way around the great state of South Carolina and beyond, listening to us on incredible radio stations like Fox Sports Radio 1400 the Midlands, heard around the world on the iHeartRadio application, our website, put the .com on it, doggone it, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. ClemsonRadio.com, ClemsonTigerRadio.com, ClemsonSportsHQ.com. We'll get you there. Believe me. 803-450-0086 text line, phone line. Closing in on the NCAA tournament. I know it started last night. If you count the play-in games, I don't. We'll tell you who won those and who's filling in the bracket so far. Another couple of ball games tonight, and we'll have our field of 64. And it'll be time for me to make my selections. Now, Georgia State last night in Tigertown knocked off the 15th-ranked Clemson Tiger baseball team 6-1 in impressive fashion. Griffin Chaney with 3 home runs for the Panthers. They gave up just 1 of 11 base runners for the Clemson Tigers were able to score in the contest in the first 5 innings. Georgia State's 6-1 win over Clemson was certainly impressive. And given the way the Tigers started the season, boy, a bit of a letdown now. A 2-game losing streak or skid for the Clemson Tigers. They'll look to bounce back in Atlantic Coast Conference play against the Miami Hurricanes starting on Friday afternoon. Obviously, weather permitting, but it was a 2-out, 2-run homer in the first inning by Chaney that got the scoring done. And again, he would hit 2 more in the ball game, including a solo shot in the 8th, his 3rd homer of the ball game. Clemson and Miami will face off at 6 o'clock Friday on the ACC Network Extra Package. Monty Lee spoke following Clemson's 2nd consecutive loss and what I think was a very surprising loss to Georgia State last night. Up at Doug Kingsmore Stadium in Tigertown.
Well, Georgia State, better club tonight. Their starting pitcher, Landry, did a really good job of, he pitched out of some jams. We had runners on base. We had some opportunities early in the game to score some runs. We needed to be able to hit with runners in scoring position, and we just didn't do that. We actually had some pretty good at-bats overall. We just couldn't come up with a hit with runners in scoring position, and their 4-hole guy killed us. That's the bottom line. I mean, he hit 3 home runs and 2 strike counts. We just didn't execute pitches to a really good hitter. We knew that he was a really good hitter, but bottom line is we didn't do a good job executing pitches and 2 strike counts against him, and he made us pay. And that was really the difference in the ball game. I mean, I thought our bullpen did a good job. Lindley, Dill, Talent, Olenchuk. I mean, those guys threw the ball very, very well defensively, played fine. Like I said, I thought we had some decent at-bats. We just didn't we didn't put together a really good at-bat with runners in scoring position. And their 4-hole guy, he got the best of us. So that was the difference in the game.
I mean, it's just baseball. But at the end of the day, the last 2 games, they've been the better team on whatever given day we've played somebody, and we've played great baseball up until this point. Still playing great baseball, I think. Just runners on base, they cashed in and we didn't today, and that's baseball, and it's going to happen. You're not going to win every single game that you play, but got a big weekend coming up, and we're excited for that.
So there you have it, Monty Lee and Cooper Ingle talking about Clemson's loss. The Tigers are now 14-2 as they enter Atlantic Coast Conference play. And look, I was talking about this either yesterday or Monday about the fact that, it's in sports, especially basketball, you could get one guy, right, that makes the difference. It could carry you to the Sweet 16, Elite 8, maybe even the Final Four. Baseball is like that in some respects, not nearly, I think, as significant as basketball, because a pitcher can't pitch every night, but you can have a dominant pitcher that carries your team a long way, or maybe even a dominant two pitchers. And there is no doubt in my mind when we talk about this Clemson Tiger team and what happened last night, that you can have just one player like Cheney be absolutely smoldering for a ball game and you can get beat. So great pitchers can carry you probably for the entirety of a season, but even those guys, even, and again, Billy Barlow, midweek pitcher, 0-1, gets the loss in the ball game. But I think the fact remains that what you see is that, look, if you've got a guy that's just having a night, it can ultimately lead to a W. And you tip your cap to the performance that Cheney had last night against Clemson. He was impressive as the Tigers fall at Doug Kingsmore Stadium, 6-1 to the Georgia State Panthers. 803-450-0086, 803-450-0086. Again, last night was a big night in terms of the Atlantic Coast, or in terms of the NCAA tournament, in terms of the NCAA tournament, because you got your first official seeds in, thanks in part to the first four, which I don't really include, but you've got your now 66 teams in the tournament, as yesterday evening on True TV, where the games will take place tonight, it was Texas Southern knocking off Texas A&M Community College 76-67, and then you had Indiana getting by Wyoming 66-58. Trace Jackson Davis, who is the son of former Clemson Tiger Dale Davis, scored 29 points for the Hoosiers, who are now in the NCAA tournament. Tonight, the final two games of the first four, in which I do not subscribe. Bryant, 16 seed, will take on Wright State, the 16 seed, at 6:40 on True TV. Then Notre Dame and Rutgers will play to be an 11 seed in the NCAA tournament at 9:10. So, again, I don't love it. Do not love it at all, but it is the NCAA tournament, and it is the way it's the way they've got this whole thing set up. So, Texas Southern, by virtue of their win yesterday, will get Kansas in the Midwest region. And then by virtue of Indiana's win over Wyoming, they get the 5th seed St. Mary's in the east side of the bracket. 2 spots left to be settled, and then yours humbly can begin his picks. 803-450-0086, text line, phone line. Be a part of the show that shakes the South Lane anytime. Today on the program, several different interviews to get to here for a couple of different reasons. One, most notably, the fact that we have not had a chance to dive into some of the audio from Thomas Austin, the new Clemson offensive line coach. We want to make sure we get that for you here on the program. Also, opportunities later in the week to hear from both coordinators in Wes Goodwin, and also a chance to hear from Clemson's new offensive coordinator, Brandon Streeter, along with Dabo Swanny. Those interviews are taking place today right as we go off the air, so expect to hear some of that good stuff on the program over the next couple of days. Plus, it will be available on our YouTube channel and our website. Best way to subscribe to the YouTube channel is go to tinyurl.com/Clemson Sports TV. If that's too difficult for you, I guarantee you can find it in YouTube and or go to our website, and we'll have the videos up there, and then you can hit that subscribe button. The website, of course, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. 803-450-0086. There you go. Get in where you fit in. Give us your comments, thoughts, and more as we rock and roll along with you here. Coming up in hour number 2, we should be joined by our good buddy John Blau. Can't wait to hear what John has to say about this Clemson Tiger football team as they move on through camp. Got a chance to hear from Sheridan Jones the other day, and I know we played plenty of Mike Reed for you. So without further ado, the man that Mike Reed talked about quite a bit during his interview and the leader in that secondary, Sheridan Jones, talked about shifting to taking on that leadership role here in 2022.
It's crazy just seeing how fast time really goes by. You know what I'm saying? One day I was a freshman, and now I'm the oldest in the room, the senior in the room. So it's crazy. Just hearing Coach Swanny really say that the days are long, but the years are short. That's really hitting home this year. It's crazy.
Sheridan Jones was also asked what he learned from Andrew Booth and Mario Goodrich while they were together at Clemson.
I learned definitely a lot just being with them every day, making sure we always get extra work and just getting back to really like having fun. Like football is a serious sport, but at the end of the day, we out here playing we're still out here playing football. So just getting back to having fun out here, just making plays and always keeping the energy.
Sheridan Jones was also asked if watching Mario Goodrich flourish a year ago sort of gave him the confidence that, hey, things might actually work out very well for you.
Yeah, definitely. It's always a time for everything. Everybody time comes different. So you got sometimes some people come early, some people come late. It's a great time for everything.
Jones was also asked about the new guys that came in and what he's seen from them so far during the limited amount of time they've had together.
Definitely got some great DBs coming in, corners and safeties. Toriano, real physical, technician. Jaden Long, ball hawk. You also got Sherrod Cova at safety, real good player. Striker coming down hitting. It's going to be a great back end for years to come.
Again, Clemson defensive back Sheridan Jones going to most likely be a starting cornerback. He was asked about kind of getting his confidence back, getting his swagger back, if you will. Remember, I mentioned the other day he had a pick six in one of the spring games. It was like, boom, look at this kid. And he sort of trailed off a little bit, but now will be his time to shine. Here's what he had to say about gaining that confidence.
I never really felt like I actually really lost my confidence. We all know how my sophomore year ended. I was dealing with injury and then came back, didn't really have my best game, but I just had to get back to really being me, you know what I mean? Having fun back on the field and just making plays and honestly just worrying about myself, not worrying about what anybody else is saying, coaches, fans, players, anybody, just being me, worrying about myself and just having fun with it. I feel like last year everything was definitely smooth. Wasn't the starter, got in there, made plays when I could. Just taking it on the chin as it goes, just going out there making the plays that I do have in front of me. It's not about how many plays I was playing, but what did I do with the plays that I had.
Sheridan Jones was also asked about what he had to do to go about sort of establishing himself as a leader this season as well.
I've always been kind of a lead by example guy, so I always try and get expert, get those guys in the film and things like that. I know one thing I wanted to work on was being more vocal, so I'm trying to make sure I open up and tell them, like, do this, make sure you don't do that. Just basically putting them under my wing and putting everybody in the best position possible to be successful.
Jones was also asked about the defense and sort of how he maybe sees it changing given Wes Goodwin taking over as the defensive coordinator.
It's definitely, I feel like nothing's really changing as far as like plays that are going to be made. We're going out there, we're playing with great energy, having fun with it. So I feel like the best is still yet to come.
Jones was also asked about the simplification, if you will, of the defense and maybe removing some of the blitzes, etc.
We definitely had around like a whole bunch of plays when I came in my freshman year. So I tried my best staying on top of that. But we definitely simplified it down, getting back to the basics. So guys can go out there and play faster and don't really have to think about much. Just go out there and play football. So that definitely helps some of the younger guys. But, me being old, it's easier for me too. You know what I mean?
Sheridan Jones was also asked about the phrase "stop and smell the roses" and what that means to him as it pertains to his career.
It's weird because I was thinking about that like the whole previous week before, and I got a roommate, Ruth. He's always telling us how like he has this saying called college, and people think of it as like just going out and partying and stuff like that. But when he says college, he's talking about us cherishing the time that we have with each other because we're not gonna get it back. So we're trying to just basically have fun and go out there. And I woke up today. I can go to practice today. Like I have the privilege of going to practice today instead of oh man I gotta go practice today. Like it's gonna be this, it's gonna be that. Just going out there and just playing football, having fun. So smelling the roses definitely that was my saying for that because I just wanted to let everybody know that it's not always easy, but we gotta cherish what we have.
Jones mentioned, of course, being a little bit more vocal this year, and he was asked, is that really in your personality?
My personality is pretty vocal, what I'm saying, around the right people. But as far as like sending people back, like during like night drills and stuff like that, I wasn't really the guy to speak up. I didn't want to be that guy. But I feel like when you're the older guy in the room, you got to be that guy. You got to set the tone for everybody else and let them know what's right from wrong and what should we be doing more, what should we be doing less. So that's one thing I really just want to make sure I did. Last year also, being behind AJ also my freshman year, after he left, me and Andrew came in the same class. So we was already like neck and neck. I'm telling him, he telling me, like we was right there with each other. But definitely, it started kind of as I got older the years before, but definitely now more than ever.
One of the final questions Jones was asked was about the defense and what he sees that they could be this year on the gridiron.
I believe this defense could be one of the best we have. That's what he said. Just got so many players that have played a lot. Our front is really crazy. Our front four, we got some great linebackers behind them that played a lot of football. And then we got some real good young guys in the back end. Also, we got Jalen Phillips at free safety. And just like I said earlier, the freshmen we got coming in, it's going to be real great for them too.
There you go. So some extensive interview time with Sheridan Jones. Again, it is up, the full-length interview with him over on our Twitter account at Clemson Sports is where you can find this Clemson Sports Talk on Twitter, on Twitter and then the YouTube. The best way, I think, is tinyurl.com/Clemson Sports TV. You can dig it up that way. 803-450-0086. Again, we'll also hear on the program today from Clemson offensive line coach Thomas Austin. We've also got our good buddy John Blau from the Post and Courier stepping into the arena to go one-on-one with the great one. Can't wait to get up with John Blau. We'll talk with him about the Clemson Tiger men's basketball team missing out, obviously, on the NCAA tournament, their heartbreaking loss at the ACC tournament, the lack of an NIT, the changes in Columbia, is there pressure or more pressure on Brad Brownell, etc. We'll get into all of that here on the program today, and you can be a part of this show very easily. 803-450-0086. That number is a text line and a phone line. It is a combo package so that you can come hang out with us to talk about your Clemson Tigers. Again, they fell on the diamond last night. Incredibly, a 6-1 loss to Georgia State. Check your bingo cards. If you had that one coming, you may have bingo, because I don't know that, I'll be honest, I don't know that many people did. I think most people thought, I would say chalk me up as included, given the way Clemson had started the season, that, oh, you know what, they weren't going to have an issue at all going through or taking on the Georgia State Panthers. Instead, the Panthers roll in. Chaney blasts 3 home runs, and the Clemson Tigers lose their second consecutive ball game. That does not dictate what will happen Friday, Saturday, and Sunday by any means with this Clemson Tiger baseball team against Miami in their Atlantic Coast Conference opener. But my goodness, isn't the complexion of sports weird? Like, all of a sudden you look at it, you go, oh man, like I know that was a difficult ball game, but my goodness, I hope things don't fall off. Could things be falling off?
I guess that's your theory.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out Friday, Saturday, and Sunday as the Tigers take on one of the top 25 teams in the country, the Miami Hurricanes. Fortunately, those games will be played at Doug Kingsmore Stadium. 803-450-0086. It is the show that shakes the Southland Clemson Sports Talk on a Wednesday afternoon. Stay with us. Back at it on a Tuesday afternoon. Don't forget, coming up in hour number 2, our good buddy John Blau from the Post and Courier joins the program. Always appreciate John's time and thank him for coming on with us. And the Clemson Tiger football team will be coming off of the practice fields in about an hour after we're done talking with John. So squeezing us into his busy schedule. And I know this from the standpoint of Clemson Tiger fans, you got to pick your you get to pick your NCAA tournament bracket. Again, I get to pick mine later tonight because I wait until we're down to 64. That's just my rule. Yeah, you got to have, like people will say to you, you got to have standards and things that you stand behind and values, and that's one of mine. You gotta wait till 64. But with that out there and in the conversation, at least I will say, coming up in hour number 2 after we talk with John Blau, we'll kind of give you the rundown of what you're looking at tomorrow. It is one of the great sports days. I think maybe it is the best. Matter of fact, you let me know. Is Thursday, Friday of the NCAA tournament the best sports day of the year? Days, plural form, of the year. I mean, just to have so many games on. And listen, it wasn't all that long ago that you could only watch these games on CBS. And so consequently, the staggered start times, what would happen is in your area, like, so let's say that Duke was playing, let's say that Duke was tipping off at 1 o'clock and they were in some other region. But they were the team that you were going to watch. They were the team that was going to be on in your area. At 12:30, if Purdue was playing St. Mary's, you would get that game from 12:30 to right at 1 o'clock, and they'd switch you over to the Duke game. And then what would happen is you'd watch that Duke game, and then if that was the second game of the day, let's just say it was, or even the third, what would happen is when those other 2 games started to come to a conclusion, they would cut you back in on those games. You remember this, right? Some of you are going, I forgot about that, because you don't really get that to the same degree now necessarily as you once did. It was the only way to watch it. And so they would cut you into the other game as it came to a conclusion. You might even get a box in a box. So you got the Duke game on one with the other game on side by side, split screen. Then another game would come to a conclusion. They'd bounce you over to that one. Then you'd come back, you'd get the end of the Duke game. And that might conclude it, or it would carry you over to a game that came on right after that, so you get the finish of that one. And that would be the window. That would be the block. Well, now, with True TV and TBS and TNT and CBS, every game pretty much gets its own 2-hour plus block. And so I'm not saying it's taken away from the tournament. I think it's added to it, but it's definitely changed how you consume it, because you do end up feeling like you miss a lot. There's a lot of channel surfing, a lot of flipping that didn't take place previously. Some of you may go, you may have like 4 screens heads up or something. You don't miss a thing. I can remember for a couple of years there was an app, and I don't know if CBS still does this, but you could do that. Like you could watch it on your TV, I think, with all 4 games going at once, kind of a quad pod picture deal. Maybe you could do that on a computer. I honestly haven't looked this year. But I will say that what did happen a couple of years before TNT and those guys got in, I'm on the bleeding edge. Like some people are on the cutting edge of technology. I'm on the bleeding edge. And a couple of years before TBS and TNT got involved, what the local CBS channels would do, and you may not know this because you may not have had over-the-air antennas. Now, if you've listened to this show over the past couple of years, you know this, because I tend to tell this story because I am fascinated by how quickly this has all changed. But what you did at that time was, if you had the over-the-air channels, then on, like, say, 19.1, which is the local WLTX CBS channel, if you're watching over-the-air TV, it's 19.1.
All right, stop it. That's enough. I can't take it anymore. You're not even making sense. You're just saying words.
It's a channel, 19.1. They would have, like, the first game. or the big game for your area would come on that channel. And then 19.2 would have another game. And then 19.3 would have another. Now, I don't believe they had 19.4. Back then, I think they just had 19.1, 2, and 3. One of them was like a weather radar all day long. Remember, now some of you are going, Swanny, I was with you. I remember when the -2s and -3s or whatever they call them were awful. Now they've got content on them. Now they've got actual shows. There's like 45 of them, by the way. If you're trying to cut back your cable bill right now, there's literally like 45 local channels free over the air. They're not all beautiful and spectacular. But you know what? When you combine that with, I don't know, Netflix or some other thing, hey, you're not missing much. You're really not. But anyway, all that being said, I was the guy that was watching it back then, trying to get them all. And, yeah, it was great. It was great. But the way they do it now, it's decent. It's pretty good. I do wish the 4-up display was a little bit better if you could figure out how to do that. You know what I can do, though? I can throw in the Google machine. Let's see if there is a CBS Sports March Madness app. I didn't even think about looking that up, honestly, until just now. But I would imagine in the app, and it does look like it's out there, CBS March Madness. I would imagine that with the app, you should be able to watch 4 channels at once. But I don't see anything initially right off the hoof. So that wouldn't seem great. Because that's another way to consume it. Watch 4 games live. Let's see. With the first 4 and the final 4, trying to find that is about impossible. Nonetheless, you used to be able to do it. I'll try to dig it up during the break, and I'll let you know if I find it. 803-450-0086. Text line, phone line. Again, coming up in hour number 2, John Blau from the Charleston Post and Courier joins us. Can't wait to get up with him. And when we get back here on the program, we talked about the potential of some changes to the commentators or commentary around the NFL. 2 major stories have unfolded over the past couple of days. We'll touch on those when we get back here on the show that shakes the Southland. Keep it locked for more Clemson Sports Talk. The show that shakes the Southland. Follow us on Twitter at Clemson Sports. That's Clemson news, notes, information, and more 24 hours a day and 7 days a week. Well, look, I know everybody listening to my voice right now appreciates sultry tones. Well, guess what? The sultry tones of Troy Aikman and Joe Buck will be shifting from Fox. Buck and Aikman will team together again, this time on ESPN as voices of Monday Night Football. That news was announced on Wednesday. Here's what Joe Buck had to say via his Twitter account about the decision and the move to the new network.
Hey, everybody, it's Joe Buck. I just wanted to take a second to tell you how excited, beyond excited I am to come to ESPN and to get to do Monday Night Football. Get to do it with Troy, get to do it with Lisa Salters, with John Perry, the entire crew. It's going to be an absolute blast. And for that guy back there, a young Jack Buck, I can't tell you how many times I went into a Monday Night Football radio booth with he and Hank Stram, and I sat there watching some of the greats to ever broadcast on television go into the Monday Night Football booth, never even thinking that I could end up there. And, well, here we are. I didn't see it coming, and, gosh, I'm glad it did. Can't wait for the schedule to come out so we can find out where we're going to be each and every Monday night. I know you'll be there, too. It's going to be a blast. Can't wait.
So there you go. Some of the news out of ESPN this week as far as their new lineup for Monday Night Football. Of course, you also had the news that came out earlier this week about Kirk Herbstreit. Now, if you're pressing panic because you didn't hear of the storylines, you're like, what happened to Kirk? What's going on with Kirk Herbstreit? Well, Kirk Herbstreit will be joining Amazon as their Thursday Night Football analyst. So he'll be doing Thursday night football games. And so he'll still be doing college football. Don't worry. He's still doing college football. He'll continue to be with ESPN. But Mr. College Football, now a part of the NFL. And so he'll be joining Al Michaels, I believe, is the plan right now, as Amazon is trying to finalize that deal. And you'll get Herb Street and Al Michaels on Thursday night football. And Herb Street, again, will still do the college football games. But, man, what a career. I read Kirk Herbstreit's book, I guess, about a year ago. Fantastic, by the way. Just a great read, an easy read. Now, some of you say, well, I don't like to read, Swanny. Out of the Pocket is the name of the book. And I did it on the I did it on the Audible app, listening to it and just riding down the road, listening to his story, some great ties to Clemson through his sons, through Woody Hayes, his relationship with his dad, his life in football, how he got to be where he is today as the face of college football. I mean, really a really cool story for sure. And I would recommend it. Like, if you said to me, Swanny, what are your recommended reads from the standpoint of college sports? I've read I've read a lot. Even though some of you are going, Swanny, it doesn't sound like you've ever read a book in your life. I can assure you I have read a lot of sports books. And I think probably that book, along with I would say Nick Saban's book, and I'll have to get the title of Saban's book, because I'm sure he's probably had more than one, given the amount of success that Nick Saban has had. But I can just tell you this. Those two books, Out of the Pocket by Kirk Herbstreit, and then I'm looking to see if I can find the name of Saban. It's just Saban by Monty Burke. That was a really good book. And I know you might not like Nick Saban, but to hear the background behind Nick Saban, good stuff. I even enjoyed Steve Spurrier's book. I thought it was a good one. So yeah, I've read a lot of books. There's a couple I've got on my list to read. Michael Jordan's book. I need to read Pistol, of course, about Pete Maravich. Wooden is a really good one. Hearing the stories of John Wooden growing up and his dad, sort of the tough, hard-nosed guy that his dad was, and the way that he learned so much from his father about coaching, just through life lessons that he learned as a young boy. I've got Rick Pitino's book on my list to read. I think I purchased that before the downfall, so it'll be interesting to see how that one sounds by comparison to what ended up happening with his career, which he's back. I mentioned this the other day, coaching at Iona. But yeah, I love books on about athletes. I really tend to lean more towards books about coaches. I know that there are books out there about Dabo Swinney I should probably stick my nose in. One of my buddies, super fan, Lee Hanna. You may know him if you had Math Science 301 at Clemson. Odds are you do. He was my college roommate, and Lee was telling me that I forget which book on Dabo Swinney he was recommending, but he said, Swanny, that's a must read. So I will have to at some point, off of the recommendation of Superfan, I will have to dive into the new Dabo Swinney book. I guess it's a new one. I'll have to check it out. But yeah, well, let me know this. I'll tell you what, text me, because I love books on sports. Text me, 803-450-0086. Never text while you're driving, but text me a book that I need to add, a coach. I tend to lean in, as I said, towards coaching books. Not books about coaching, but books by coaches. If it's Bo Schembechler or whoever, Yeah, let me know. I really would love to keep it at the collegiate level if possible, but I'll lean into the NFL if I need to, or the NBA if Pat Riley's got a great book. Let me know. 803-450-0086. Text me. The show that shakes the Southland, Clemson Sports Talk. We're on Twitter at Clemson Sports. Follow us where nearly 25,000 other people do. And again, our website, put the .com on it. Doggone it, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. You know, I was looking a couple of books I haven't read. And well, one I'm in the middle of, but I just recognized a couple of other sports books that I have not read. That First Season, which is about Vince Lombardi, is one that I need to get into. The Legends Club is another one by John Feinstein. Is it Feinstein? Yeah, I think so. But the Legends Club is one I want to listen to. It's about Dean Smith, Mike Krzyzewski, and Jim Valvano. Then there's also The QB by Bruce Feldman that I need to read. And the last one is sort of the I don't want to call it the dirty side of college sports because it's not all that, but it really deals with the system, is what it's called, by Jeff Benedict and Armin Katayan. And then the other one, When the Game Was Ours, Magic Johnson and Larry Bird. So, I mean, there are a lot of really good sports books out there for sure. Hit me up though. What's next on my list? What am I missing? What's the great sports book that I need to add? And I think just kind of given the fact that Coach K is hanging it up at the end of this season, I think I'm going to try to go ahead and fire up that John Feinstein book right now, The Legends Club, simply because, well, not like, yeah, I think what I'm going to do is fire up that book right now, and you guys aren't going to hear from me. We're going to listen to it together. It'll be a read-along. Everybody just buckle up, folks. Here's John Feinstein's The Legends Club. No, but I think what I will do is maybe over the next couple of weeks, just try to listen to that one because I do think it's a really, really, I think it's going to be a really good book. And now with the fact that, you know, Jim Valvano's passed away, obviously Dean Smith's passed away, and Coach K's leaving college basketball, I think this would be an opportune time to lock in and read that one. So again, I'll give you the text line one more time. 803-450-0086. We're not going to have a book club here. This is not, well, what book did Swanny recommend this month? No, we're not. We're not going to do that. But if you do have a great sports book that I need to read, like I'm often fascinated by Babe Ruth and his life for whatever reason. Just kind of the story behind Babe Ruth, I think, is a fascinating one. They're just given his numbers by comparison to his contemporaries, and for that matter, his numbers by comparison to teams, like, is astounding to me. You know, we've just never seen in any sport that I'm aware of somebody that's been that much more dominant than everybody else. And of course, that would include Wilt Chamberlain's greatness when he was scoring 100 points and doing the things that he was doing early in his career. It pales in comparison to the results that Babe Ruth was having in baseball. So, yeah, if you ask me, is there, Swanny, is there a guy that you'd like to read about? Yeah, I think Babe Ruth would interest me if you know of that. I've often been fascinated by Muhammad Ali. Really, those, and you hate to limit it to like the greatest to ever do it, but it's true. For whatever reason, I think when you're an entrepreneur, when you've got a website the way we do in the business and the radio show and everything like this, like to some people, you go, if you told them that you did radio, they'd say, well, that sounds like an easy job. That's it. I'd love to do that for a living. Now, look, what most of you and maybe maybe most of you do know, but maybe some of you don't. This is not a full-time job. I work an 8-hour job before I roll in here. Okay? And so it's a busy thing. A busy day. But even still, running your own business and managing the ins and the outs of that, man, it's tough. And anybody that does this, I tip my cap to you. It's not easy. But books like that, I think in some respects, when you've kind of got that mindset built in, really help you. You know, they can help shape you and drive you and motivate you. There's a lot of determination that comes along with those books. A lot of failure, a lot of picking yourself back up and doing it again. Hard work, effort, motivation. I mean, there's just a lot of good, positive qualities that come out of books like that. I mean, look, if you said, Swanny, do you ever read science fiction? I mean, the answer is yes. I mean, I do. Not often. I read Ready Player One. I've got Ready Player Two on the docket. But for me, there's a motivation that sports and stories about sports and those individuals who have been through that, that ringer, if that's the right word for it, that to me is what makes some of these books so intriguing. And the great thing about you, the listeners, is you amplify and magnify my potential readership. And you don't have to know everything about every single book that Swanny likes to be able to give me a good one. You just need to give me the ones that you like or that you've read, and I'll dive into them. And what's great about it is, if I do read them, man, I'll drop some comments here on the show, and I'll drop your name. I'll say, man, you know who put me onto this one? Johnny 847 put me onto this book. So let me know if you know of a great sports book. I don't know. Matter of fact, I'll be honest with you. No idea. Oh, I know how we got here. Kirk Herbstreit. Blame Kirk Herbstreit that we're here. But yeah, just, Kirk's book, Out of the Pocket, was a spectacular read, a quick read, a good story. I really enjoyed it. And if you got another great book for me to check out, man, let me know. Again, 803-450-0086. Hour 2, John Blau joins us. Stay with us.
It's time for Clemson Sports Talk with Lawton Swan.
Ready, set. Just call me Swanny.
Tiger style. Tiger style.
It is hour number 2. That's drive time right here on the show that shakes the Southland. Clemson Sports Talk. Lawton Swan with you, and excited to be joined by our good buddy John Blau from the Charleston Post and Courier. This man is on Twitter at John_Blau. That's a JON and underscore, then the BLAU. So go follow him. Not necessarily the easiest name to type if you don't know how it's spelled. So it's JON_BLAU. Go follow John Blau right now. We've got John on the speaking of right now, I guess, and I am a poet and I didn't know it. We've got John Blau on the program right now to talk about things going on in Tiger Town. John, hope you're well, man. Thanks for coming back on with us here on a Wednesday afternoon.
Thanks for having me, Lawton.
Hey, buddy. Listen, I appreciate your work. You do a jam-up job. Again, if you're not already reading his work with the Charleston Post and Courier, you need to, as he covers your Clemson Tigers. And John, I was saying up in hour number 1, it's funny how the complexion of things can change pretty quickly. And I want to start with Clemson Tiger baseball. They run out to this 14-0 start. And you're like, man, they're like a freight train trucking along. Then they lose a game against Northeastern. Maybe no surprise given that Northeastern swept NC State. We thought maybe they'd be a tough team, and they certainly were. And on Sunday, they played very good to knock off Clemson. But then last night to lose 6-1 to Georgia State, giving up 3 home runs to the Cheney kid. I'm not going to lie to you. I'm just like, no, what happened?
Yeah, I mean, obviously midweek games are a little squirrely. You have a freshman on the mound. I think was it Billy Barlow.
Yeah,
And
Barlow.
so, yeah, so you're going to have days where he's not at his best. I think the thing that was more concerning probably was just the way the bats were. I mean, only score one run on Georgia State, and like you said, now it's 2 losses in a row. Now you're going into conference play against Miami of Florida. It's not, you obviously love the hot start, but you don't want to start to kind of tail off just as you're starting ACC play. That is the thing that's really inopportune about it. But at the same time, baseball, it's a hard sport to win every single game. You're not going to go through a season undefeated. You're going to have days where the bats aren't working, or like I said, in the midweek game, a freshman's not going to have his best outing, or the bullpen's not really going to stack up. But you hope it's a blip. I mean, I think if you're a Clemson fan, you hope it's one of those blips that happens in baseball. You get in, play in Miami, and you recover. But we'll see. Yeah, it would not be a very good time to be slumping right now.
Yeah, that's exactly my thoughts. Like, if you lose, if you're 14-2 right now and you're riding maybe a 4 or 5 game winning streak into the weekend against Miami, you got like just a little swagger, a little air of confidence instead. And I thought Monty Lee, his reaction after Clemson lost to Northeastern, that was captured in the, in the dugout, where he was telling the guys, look how proud he was of what they accomplished and how tough it is to do what they did. Like that, in that moment, you think, okay, well, they'll bounce back, they'll have the win, and then they'll be ready for ACC play. And then they get the loss. It's like all of a sudden you're like, ooh, that's not what you wanted to do. As you mentioned before, a top 25 Miami team comes to Doug Kingsmore Stadium. He's John Blau. He's on Twitter at John_Blau. And John, I know you cover Clemson. Everybody that listens to this show understands that fact, but you can't help but think in some respects, when South Carolina in basketball fires Frank Martin earlier this week, that the wheels in the mind's eye of Clemson Tiger fans who have stared at Brad Brownell on the sidelines for 12 years with a lot of disappointment weren't thinking, if the Gamecocks are willing to fire their guy who got them to a Final Four in a decade, what are we doing? I mean, did you kind of feel that from the social media side of things, from the Clemson fans' perspective?
Yeah, I mean, when you see the resume stacked up, and they talk about Frank Martin's been there for about, how long has it been? A decade?
Decade, yeah.
I mean, he's been there for a while, yeah, and obviously hasn't gone to the postseason a lot. And obviously Brad Burnell's here, and he just didn't make the postseason. But I think the difference is that there's a little bit more recent success in terms of making the postseason with Clemson, where, he did have that run of 2 out of 4 years where they make the NCAA tournament, maybe don't go as far as people want. They've been to the NIT. Obviously, there's the pandemic season. Frank Martin was, if I just, look at where he is and where Brownell is, Martin was further along the line of, you've had this many chances and you didn't make it. Brad Brownell, even though it's been a dozen years, I know there's a section of the fan base that really is kind of, fed up and wants something new. He has had more recent, I would say, success, at least getting to the postseason, where Frank Martin hasn't. Obviously, Frank Martin had that amazing run in, 2017, was it?
Yeah.
In the NCAA tournament. But I think it's one of those things where Brownell, he gets at least another year. If there's another year where you don't make the NIT, where you don't make the NCAA tournament, I can see the kind of, we're at the end of the line here. But Brad Brownell's kind of a step off of that, I would say. So yeah, no, it definitely does correlate in your mind. You're like, wow, okay, this coach across the way who, didn't make the NIT either. The overall record even looks a little bit better this year. Has been around for about the same length of time. Now they're cutting bait. When does Clemson? I'm just kind of explaining in terms of the way I think about it. I would think that Brad Brownell gets at least another year, especially considering how much he has coming back. And the hopes is you can build some things up through the transfer portal. He at least gets that chance. So we'll see, but I definitely understand, where the thoughts combine for people.
Yeah, it probably didn't help either that Mike Young goes to Virginia Tech and wins the Atlantic Coast Conference tournament after beating Clemson on a buzzer beater, being a guy from who coached at Wofford. And I think that people just fans, and that's what I mean. Look, they're fanatics about it, right? They connect the dots and they go, "Hey, what are we doing?" Like fans are much more apt to to call for somebody's, I guess, head because they don't have to actually walk into the building and make the decision. But nonetheless, always appreciate your insight and want to get it also from sort of the outsider's perspective for our listeners. I mean, what should the expectations be for Clemson Tiger basketball, John? You're a guy who's from the state of Indiana, who, by the way, worked their way into the NCAA tournament last night. But what is or should be the expectations for Clemson Tiger basketball?
Yeah, I mean that's an answer that has to come from the fans, has to come from the administration. But I mean, if I look at Clemson as again an outsider, someone who came in, I think of it as a football school where basketball is somewhat secondary. And so, if football doesn't go to the postseason, however many years in a row, isn't competing for the CFP, especially with the amount of money that's being poured into it, the brand, where it is, and where fans, I think, and administration want it to be, then that's, hugely disappointing. With Clemson basketball, the brand is not there to a level, and it doesn't seem that the expectations are, from what I've seen of recent history or even going back 20 years, that you're going to be a team that, is always in the NCAA tournament, always making deep runs. It's kind of almost that you're a program where it's almost like Wake Forest. I look at them in football where, they're taking talent that other people miss, developing it well, having a system, getting the most out of it. I feel like Brad Barnell, that's where he in this program is. He goes and gets guys, and PJ Hall maybe being an outlier in terms of a guy who's a national recruit, but getting a lot of guys other people don't quite, think measure up, bringing them into your system, which is very defensively oriented, which is kind of a style of basketball that not everybody loves to watch. It's ugly. It's not fun to see a team that, can't always shoot well or can't always, create off the dribble, do all these things. But he's kind of created a program where they're getting the most out of their guys, and they develop and they get better. But, they're not going to be, generally competing for the Sweet 16, for the Elite Eight, for things like that every year. But you could have a team like that once every 5 years or once every 4 years, or something like that makes a run if they all develop the way you want them to. But again, that's up to the administration. That's up to fans to decide. I mean, if they're not content with that, then you go and get the best coach you can, pay him a whole lot of money, and put a whole lot of money into the arena and the recruiting budget and all those things. You can turn it around to a degree. Like, again, we've talked about, Auburn, Alabama, other schools like that have shifted from just being more football oriented to being quite good on the basketball floor too. Maybe that's what fans want, or the administration maybe at some point wants. But as long as they're, Brad Barnell's getting the most out of his guys, he seems to be a guy who does that to a degree. Again, it's hard for me to say what the expectations should be, but he does seem to get them to play a certain style, and maybe it's just a style that people don't always love to watch. Again, it's a little more defense and, that type of deal.
He is on Twitter at John_Blau. That's a JON and a BLA. You go follow him right now, John Blau, for the Charleston Post and Courier, covering your Clemson Tigers, giving you some thoughts on his program, on the basketball program from his perspective. Sort of still an outsider, which I like to hear kind of the thoughts from somebody that hasn't necessarily been around the program for the decades and decades that I have and many of our listeners have. Now, John, I know this Clemson Tiger football team today, they'll be coming off of the practice fields for spring ball. About 6 o'clock, Dabo Swanny, Wes Goodwin, Brandon Streeter we're expected to hear from. But I will ask you, over the past couple of days, we've had a chance to hear from some other guys. And I know Mike Reed is a coach that Dabo Swanny is thankful that is certainly still there, defensive backs coach, special teams coach. But the thing about him, man, you listen to him and you can tell, right? Like he kind of oozes that confidence, I think, that a head coach would have. And boy, was he an entertaining interview the other day.
Yeah, I've asked him about being around for 10 years, where obviously the rest of the staff is completely turned over. So Mike Reed is the guy who's been around for a really long time, and I think he used the words, "I'm the dinosaur," kind of out here, in terms of you looking at the landscape of college football. He doesn't know many DB coaches that have been around 5 years, and he's been around 10. And I think he compared himself to rusty dog, which I don't know if he meant crusty dog, but that you just can't get him out of the pen or whatever. He's going to be here till and also a true soldier. He's going to be there till the last bullet comes. But yeah, no, he's definitely a guy who's very committed to Clemson at this point. So I think I remember the other part of the quote was, "I must be doing something right." I think he's happy, doing a good job and being a part of a program like this. And he said be behind the curtain a little bit. But yeah, when he comes out from behind the curtain, he's a guy who's willing to, have a good time with the media, have a good conversation. I think another interesting thing that he said was, really pumping the fact that Clemson is a place where if you want to play as a cornerback, they're gonna let you play early, and they're not gonna sit you. There's nobody that he brings in that really redshirts. I mean, if you think about Nate Wiggins played last year as the guy that they expect more from this year, Jaden Lucas, Toriano Pride, two freshmen they brought in, highly recruited guys. They expect them to play a big role this year, and so it's interesting to see kind of the guys he's bringing in, the guys he's willing to just throw in there, how they perform, how they're going to look. And then a guy like Sheridan Jones, Mario Goodrich last year was a guy who's kind of a rotational piece, turns into an NFL draft prospect along with Andrew Booth Jr. And so is Sheridan Jones one of those guys who's going to develop and kind of take the same trajectory. So Mike Reed's been around for a really long time. He's definitely, again, got that swag about him, I guess, which makes him a guy who fits that assistant head coach role that, changed hands a couple of times after Tony Elliott left. But he has a lot of confidence in himself and his guys, and he's definitely an asset for Clemson football.
I did have to chuckle when he said he said when he was talking about the type player he's looking for, he said something like, but not a bunch of Mike Reeds, right? Because he's just kind of a shorter, stockier guy. That was a pretty good moment. And the other thing too, I think that just speaks sort of volumes about Mike Reed is what you just said, like his commitment to this program, because in the midst of the run that he's had as the defensive backs coach and the guys that he's sent to the NFL, from A.J. Terrell, Trayvon Mullen, and again, what Andrew Booth and Mario Goodrich are likely to do. I mean, not only is he certainly a hot commodity now, but based off his resume, I mean, he's been a hot commodity for a while.
Yeah, again, like I said, he, had the line about, "I'm a true soldier. I'm going to be here till the last bullet, flies." And obviously there have been guys who have left. Obviously, Venables and Elliott go on to head coaching jobs. Todd Bates leaves and follows Venables to Oklahoma. You have to think that Mike Reed was a target. I mean, I don't think that, there was nobody that wanted Mike Reed. I think that obviously, again, these are reports, and I love to, speculate about them because who knows how true they were. But I saw stuff flying on Georgia message boards about, maybe they're going to go after Mike Reed for their secondary position, coach. And so he's definitely a guy who's, anytime there's going to be a rumor or anytime there's an opening, he's going to be a guy that people are interested in, whether it's the fans are interested or the actual coaches themselves. But yeah, no, he's definitely a coveted guy. I mean, just thinking back to my time at IU, I think Kalen DeBoer was a really big offensive coordinator hire. They were paying him $800,000 a year, and that was considered a big deal, because they don't pay coaches that much. In football, Mike Reed's making, I think, $750,000, and he's a cornerbacks coach. So he's definitely valued. He's definitely, a guy that you have to pay that much, or, that value could come elsewhere. But he's a guy who is a very highly valued where he is, and probably by other people. But he's sticking it out at Clemson, like you said.
John Blau with us here on the program. And John, I know you had a chance to hear from Sheridan Jones, sort of the next man up when it comes to Clemson's defensive back group. A little bit undersized, but he's definitely been a playmaker during his time at Clemson when he's been healthy. What were some of your big takeaways from the opportunity to sit down with him?
Yeah, I mean, like I said, he's a guy who can kind of follow that Mario Goodrich path. A guy who's been on the field a whole lot, but was behind Andrew Booth, was behind Mario Goodrich. And I think his whole saying, it was interesting. I actually saw it in a video that Taj Boyd put up, was smell the roses, in terms of, appreciating what you have. And he's a guy that's going to have a whole lot more responsibility on him now. But he's just more concerned about having fun, appreciating the ability to be able to play another year and appreciating the position he's in right now, which is a guy who has the potential to kind of lead the room, be the guy who's going to, have to take the rest of the guys under his wing and go out there and try to make plays. And he seems really excited for that opportunity. And I mean, as a guy who is a cornerback in that defense, I think that's a kind of a fun defense to play on, because you got that defensive line, bringing the pressure that they're going to bring. You have the linebackers that they have potentially this year with the speed they have with Trenton Simpson, Barrett Carter, and Jeremiah Trier Jr., just all the different athletes they have in that linebacker core. You're really going to be able to potentially make a lot of plays if you're a secondary guy. And I think Sheridan Jones is excited about that. We don't get to talk to the freshmen, but I'm sure a lot of other guys in that secondary are excited about that too. And he definitely seems like a guy who's confident. I think he was talking about back in kindergarten that he used to sign his letter S as a money symbol instead. Go get that money. A very, very ambitious guy. And so, yeah, he's got that swagger. And Coach Swanny was talking about it actually when spring practice opened, just that he loves the way he's walking, he's talking right now. Definitely got a lot of confidence. And it'll be interesting to see how he plays in the spring game, but then also going into next year.
Final thing here with John Blau. John, we only have about a minute, so we'll have to be quick. NCAA tournament. I said yesterday, I'm zigging with the Zags. I've never picked Gonzaga to win it all. I'm going to this year. Am I way out of bounds on that, or who are you taking?
Yeah, I am not an expert. Well, I hate picking things, so I can be very quick here because I like the whole thing about sports being that I don't know what's going to happen generally. That's live feed or all of that. So I'm one of those people that probably flips coins or takes them by mascots, who I like there. Maybe get a dog to, walk towards one or the other, put treats on both sides, see where they go. Pick it that way. So I don't know. Yeah, you can have the Zags. That sounds good. I don't know who I'm picking. I mean, I really could pick a name out of the hat. I hate to have a prediction out there and then just be way off base anyway. So
yeah, my thought was redemption, right? Like this seems like their redemption year, and getting to the championship and losing, and then this is the year they come back. I like the Chet Holmgren kid. I mean, that guy's a big guy that can do a lot. We'll see. Who knows? Maybe they lose again, but I think this is the year. Gonzaga fans, this is the year. You heard it here first. All right, John Blau, Charleston Post and Courier. JB, we will talk to you next week, my man. Always appreciate you.
All right, thanks, Lon.
We'll hit a quick break here on the show that shakes the Southland and come back and talk about some of the matchups you'll get to watch tomorrow in the NCAA tournament. Stay with us. Thank you again to John Blau for joining us here. Clemson's Sports Talk. He writes for the Charleston Post and Courier. Coming up tonight in the NCAA tournament, the first four, the final two, first four games. You know how I feel about it. Do not love it. Wright State and Bryant facing off in the first matchup to give us, 65 teams at that point. And then one final game following that one. By the way, that is a 6:40 tip-off on True TV. Then at 9:10 tonight on True TV, it'll be Notre Dame and Rutgers, two 11-seed teams battling to get in, and that will take us down to 64. So at the end of that game, which will be close to midnight, I will make my picks, and that will set me on the course for victory as Gonzaga is going to win the national title. That's my prediction. But here's what the schedule looks like tomorrow. And again, I said it earlier in the show. I think Thursday, Friday of the NCAA tournament, I think those are the greatest days in sports in the calendar year. Greater than the day of the Super Bowl, greater than the day of the NCAA college football playoff national championship. Even when, look, I have to take Clemson out of it, right? Like, I just got to talk about that day in general, whether Clemson's playing or not. And these 2 days are scintillating, spectacular. 6-seed Colorado State takes on the 11-seed Michigan Wolverines in the South region, 12:15 on CBS. That's where it gets started. The 4-seed Providence Flyers take on South Dakota State out of the Midwest region at 12:40. That's on True TV. An 8-9 matchup between 8 seed Boise State and 9 seed Memphis out of the West at 1:45 on TNT. And you got number 1 seed, one of the number 1 seeds at least, Baylor, taking on Norfolk State, East Region, 2 p.m. on TBS. 2:45, we roll it back into the South Region with the 3 seed Tennessee Volunteers, coached by one former Clemson Tiger head coach Rick Barnes. They're taking on Longwood. That's 2:45 on CBS. At 3:10 on True TV, it'll be the 5th seed Iowa Hawkeyes taking on Richmond. That's a Midwest regional matchup. Then the number 1 seed Gonzaga Bulldogs, 4:15 against Georgia State, the Panthers, who beat your Tigers in baseball yesterday, 6-1. Hope to shock the world and knock off number 1 seed Gonzaga. That's on TNT at 4:15 tomorrow. 4:30 tomorrow on TBS. The Tar Heels, the 8 seed, take on Marquette, the 9th seed. That's an East Region matchup. Then a little respite, a little break, and then at 6:50, the nightcaps kick up. 6:50, the 5th seed UConn Huskies taking on New Mexico State, first round matchup in the West Region on TNT. At 7:10 on CBS, it'll be Kentucky taking on St. Peter's, the 15th seed. Then at 7:20 on TBS, St. Mary's will take on Indiana. The Hoosiers played their way in yesterday to the NCAA tournament. On True TV at 7:27, it'll be the 8 seed San Diego State taking on the 9 seed Creighton. 9:20 on TNT, the 4 seed Arkansas Razorbacks taking on Vermont. At 9:40 on CBS, you got the 7 seed Murray State taking on the 10 seed San Francisco. San Francisco, by the way, some national championships back in the day. Bill Russell, I think it was like, 1954, 1955, somewhere in there. Bill Russell led San Francisco to back-to-back NCAA titles, if my memory serves me correctly. We'll find out in a few minutes if it did. 9:50 p.m. on TBS, the 4 seed UCLA Bruins. Some people think UCLA is going to make another deep run in the tournament. They'll take on the 13 seed Akron. And then at 9:57 on True TV, it'll be Kansas taking on Texas Southern, the 16 seed. Kansas, a 1 seed. Texas Southern played their way into the tournament yesterday. That is a look at all of the matchups for Thursday. What about Friday? Well, we'll give them to you on Thursday. Why would I give you those? Why would I cloud your mind with that today? I won't. I do want to check this, though. The stat on San Francisco. I guess that's San Francisco University basketball, just to make sure that I was right. Did I get the years right? That's what's key. I said 1954 and 1955. Let's take a look here to see when they won their NCAA championships. Oh, Swanny, so close, 55-56. Made the Final Four in 55, 56, and 57. San Francisco University, by the way, the Dons, made the Elite Eight in 55, 56, 57, 64, 65, 73, and 74. Made the Sweet 16, 74, 78, 79 as well. Kind of add that into those years they made the Elite Eight, right? Man, can you imagine? Can you imagine being a team that had that much success for that long and then you just sort of flail off? They made the NCAA tournament in 79, made it to the Sweet 16 that year, made it back to the tournament in 81, 82, did not make it back till 1998. They have not been in the tournament since 1998. This is their first year back in the tournament. But that stretch, and it's amazing. There's kind of what I said yesterday, right? Like one player, Bill Russell, essentially comes in and San Francisco wins 2 national titles. You know how good Bill Russell was based off of his career in the NBA as well. But my goodness, one player essentially sparked 3 Final Four visits, 7 Elite Eight visits, and 12 Sweet 16 visits. One great player. And I know it was done a long time ago. I know the game was different. I know getting into the tournament and winning the tournament was different. But still, I mean, that is, to me, that is the exact storyline that I was saying the other day about how a player collegiately can make not just a difference for a season. That's like a difference for 2 decades. Stay with us. Closing in on the back half of the show that shakes the Southland. Lawton Swan with you. ClemsonSportsTalk.com is the website. On Twitter at Clemson Sports. And please tell your friends and neighbors, and make sure you like and subscribe to our Facebook page, our YouTube page. That way you can get all of the info and old shows like the Rusty Old Dog edition. I don't know how, but every once in a while I do misspell the titles. It drives me insane sometimes when that happens. Nonetheless, you're saying titles of what? The shows when they go out. Like edition. I type it so fast sometimes I miss a letter or whatever. But anyway, speaking of edition, one of the additions, see what I did there? One of the additions to the Clemson Tiger coaching staff, Thomas Austin, who took over from Robbie Caldwell, coaching the offensive line, sat down with the media a couple of days ago. And here's Coach Austin's, I believe this was the first time we actually had a chance to hear from Thomas Austin as a coach. And he was asked about having to coach tight ends in Clemson's bowl game and whether or not it was a little bit of a, quote, baptism by fire, if you will.
Well, I told Coach Richardson, coaching one guy, man, that's easy. Watching one person. No, it was fun. I mean, I enjoyed it. Felt good about the run block and stuff, and knew I could learn a lot about the passing game. So, yeah, I kind of thought I had I knew the transition was happening. I thought I could take advantage of some of the schedule and get my thoughts in order and practice plans for the spring, and then that changed. Yeah, so definitely did.
Thomas Austin was asked about how the center exchange is going so far.
Well, I couldn't be more proud of Will Putnam. Can't brag on him enough. I mean, he's done an amazing job. From the minute we had that conversation, he's been out here whenever they're able to throw it on their own, and he's been snapping with DJ and getting the younger guys out here. And so he's had very few snap issues. And then from a technique standpoint, he's doing a phenomenal job. So he's a natural, and he's done a great job. Very selfless guy. And there's not a tougher kid on our team, playing with a little bit of an ankle issue, but he's not going to miss anything.
Thomas Austin was also asking about how the move he made collegiately has helped him help Will Putnam with his move.
Well, I think when the worst thing as a center is when you make a bad snap, right? Because then everyone who's around you has an opinion on how to fix it. And so I think I've experienced that. I've success and failure, right? I've had bad snaps. And so, hey, refocus. Here's your process. Here's what you can do to fix it. And one thing I'll say about Will is he can self-correct himself. I think when guys make that transition, they don't always know when they have a bad snap, and if they do, where it goes. But he knows, hey, that was low, that was high. So he's doing a really good job.
Austin was also asked about whether or not, in his mind, Putnam could just establish himself as the guy.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got to get a best 5 on the field, So whether that's with Putt at center and someone else at guard, or whether that's Putt going to guard and Trent or Ryan coming on. Those guys, Trent and Ryan, have done really well, and they've been working really hard. I'm really, really excited about their progress. But they're young guys, and it's a developmental position. So, and then, if COVID and last year has taught us anything, is that it's the next man up mentality that, let's say, puts the guy going into the season where you're an injury away or you're a positive COVID test away from someone else being in there. I think it was at Hunter Rayburn popped positive the day of Syracuse, and Mason Trotter goes in and played well. So, yeah, we need depth at that position, and you need guys that can play it.
Thomas Austin was also asked about the play at right guard.
At right guard, yeah. So it's been kind of Mitch Mays, and Mitch is out with a little elbow issue, and so John Williams has been getting those reps. With J-Mac out, Brian Tucker was playing left guard, but he played some right guard today too. So, feel really good about those guys coming back that started last year. And so we're rotating a couple guys in there at right guard, try to find our best 5.
Thomas Austin was also asked about Coach Robbie Caldwell, obviously Caldwell stepping away, but still kind of around the program, and certainly the guy that taught Thomas Austin what he knows about the game. And here's what he had to say about Caldwell being around the program.
Well, obviously, I mean, y'all know my relationship with Coach Caldwell goes back to high school. My high school coach and him were roommates at Furman, and so I've known Coach Caldwell forever. And I mean, he recruited every guy on that field, and so I mean, those are still his guys. And so we're thankful he's around, and it's like a different for him now. He's not in the weeds as much, so he gets to enjoy watching, the fruit of his labors and watch those guys practice, and then, what he's bringing from an off the field high school relations. I feel like every time I walk in my office, he's talked to half the high school coaches in the state, and they all have a recruit, and so he's going to continue to work and provide value and be a big cheerleader for those guys up front.
The other question for Austin dealt with the transfer portal and if Clemson's made any progress on that front.
Yeah, we're like I said, we're trying to get our best 5 on the field, and so we're exhausting all options. And I love the guys we have. I feel loyal to those guys. But if there's a guy out there that fits what we're looking for, not just as a player, but from our culture, and then we're certainly gonna exhaust every option.
Clemson offensive line coach Thomas Austin was asked about his confidence in Putnam, if indeed he has to be the guy at center heading into the season.
Yeah, I mean, I got a lot of confidence right now. I mean, he's done a heck of a job. He had 31 competitive plays yesterday and just had 1 low snap, or Wednesday. I'm sorry. Yeah, today's Friday, right? Wednesday, and so he's done a heck of a job. And the good thing about his snaps right now is if he misses, they're low. They're not over the head where you're chasing after in this turnover. So we've got a lot of confidence in what his progression. Only 6 practices in, he's done a phenomenal job. I mean, he's a smart football player. He's played a lot, and so he knew those calls at guard. I think, and that's where the benefit of cross training is. It teaches you the big picture. We've changed a few of our calls and try to simplify some things, and so he's done a good job kind of catching on to that pretty quick.
As far as how things change for Putnam, here's what Thomas Austin had to say.
Well, he sets the blocking scheme, so he IDs based off this run or pass, who the zone combination or the gap scheme combination is going to. If it's a pass, who we're IDing and sliding to, and everyone else sets their combination blocks off of his point. So if he's wrong, we're all wrong. And so at guard, as a young player, now as an older player, he knows the points, but young guys, he tells them what to do basically. So it all starts with the center, and then the quarterback, really verifies that.
There you go. Clemson offensive line coach Thomas Austin talking about the situation on the offensive line, especially with Will Putnam now taking over at center. And we'll see how that continues to develop during the spring. We'll hit a quick break. We'll come back and put a big old bow on the Wednesday edition of Clemson Sports Talk.
What have you done for me lately? It's a fair question. Just don't lose sight of the bigger picture. Don't forget history. Lucky for us at Clemson, the answers to the questions, what have you done for me lately, and what have you done always, are the same. We win.
Final segment on a Wednesday afternoon, and we are nearly into the NCAA tournament. Man, there will be NCAA tournament action going on when we are on the air with you tomorrow. Some games will have already concluded by the time we get on the air. But it is, in my opinion, the best day in sports. The best 2 days, the Thursday and Friday of the NCAA tournament. Don't forget to send me your favorite book or the books I need to read as it pertains to college sports. And I will take some professional sports books if you have one that you just think, hey, Swanny, there's no-brainer alert. You're going to love this one. Yeah, I'll hear you out on it. I'm not anti pro sports books. You heard that, I have some, but would love to hear what I need to read, what I haven't read. 803-450-0086. All right, that's the easiest way to take care of that. Again, when we left you just a few minutes ago, we were hearing from Clemson's new offensive line coach, Thomas Austin, and one of the final questions he was asked, and we didn't get a chance to get into it with you, was just about how things have gone. And, he talked about some of the snap issues and some of the things that Will Putnam is doing well, but, the continuity that has to exist between a quarterback and a center. Now, in this Clemson offense where you're snapping the ball back to the quarterback, maybe it's not quite as imperative as it once was when you were taking snaps under center, right? But you still have to be accurate. There's no doubt about that. But maybe just the kind of comfort of those two guys coming together with the timing and the sync of things. But there's also the thought process and the conversation surrounding, or at least the comfort that can be created by the relationship between the quarterback and the starting center. And here's how Thomas Austin answered that question about DJ Uiagalelei and Will Putnam sort of coming together.
Yeah, they've got to see things the same way. I think, and that's like Put's put in the work. He's worked hard with DJ to get extra snaps, and I think they're getting some extra film study in, especially from a protection standpoint as we get into game prep and how we want to ID protections that week. Those guys got to be on the same page, and communicate well.
So if you listen to what he says, I mean, it does sound like things are going good from that standpoint. And, I've talked probably pretty much at length about the fact that I believe when you take DJ and you trim him down some, you make him a little bit more fleet of foot, a little bit more swift in the pocket. That adds confidence to DJ's game. If DJ's more confident, you're going to probably play better. You're going to have better performances. You're going to feel better with the ball in his hand. He's going to feel more confident. That, of course, begins to extend to the wide receivers. It's like a snowball, right? Start small, positives, and the next thing you know, by the end, man, you're just steamrolling teams because all of a sudden what you thought you were a year ago, or that what you were going to be a year ago, finally begins to come to fruition. And center quarterback exchange, quarterback confidence, I mean, all of those things are key components, in my opinion, to taking your game up a notch. And Clemson finishes 10-3. It certainly felt like a disappointment, but the fact that they continue that 10-game winning streak every season, a big deal, or a 10-game winning, winning 10 games or more for a decade is incredibly impressive. And now's the time to sort of turn it up a notch and go out and prove that what last year was simply a one-off and not a new era. Wasn't going to become the norm. So I am anxious. I'm sure you are anxious to see this Clemson Tiger team this spring. I know they won't be at full capacity, obviously, without the running backs, and you got some wideouts banged up and this, that, and the other. But look, I think that from a patchwork offensive line that they pieced together a year ago to now having Hunter Rayburn end up leaving the game, Mason Trotter being unable to play for the majority of this season, sometimes things like that can end up being a blessing in disguise in terms of building your lineup and maybe getting your best five guys out there. And maybe this will open up an opportunity for Will Putnam to prove that, hey, you know what? You may have been missing out by not having me out there being the guy and at center. So maybe, just maybe, this ends up being a bit of a blessing in disguise, if you will, for Clemson. Again, our website, ClemsonSportsTalk.com. If you've never been, come check it out. We know we've got some deficiencies. We know we want to continue. We're going to continue to grow, but we cannot do that without you. We'd love to have you jump in for $63.17 to support us, to help continue to keep the lights on over there. Again, it's ClemsonSportsTalk.com. Thank you to John Blau from the Post and Courier for being a part of the program. Love catching up with him. Loved his insight into the Clemson Tiger football, baseball, and basketball programs. And again, we'll continue to keep you updated on everything going on in the NCAA tournament. Look, when I come back, as I said earlier, the games will be underway. Enjoy them. Enjoy them. And we look forward to chatting with you then again here on Clemson Sports Talk tomorrow. Until that time, as always, y'all take care now. And go Tigers!